Good evening, everybody. This is your host, Huge Pop from the Huge Pop Entertainment. Today I have my brother, Matt. But ladies and gentlemen, buckle up because today's episode is one up for the history books. We're talking raw power, intense grit, the one of the most fascinating journeys of NFL history. Our guest today isn't just a football legend. He's a man who's lived the highs and the lows and came back stronger than ever. You know the name. You've seen him in the highlights. Former first-round draft pick, Michigan State monster, Green Bay Packer, Indianapolis Colt, a true warrior on and off the field. Please welcome to the show the one, the only, Tony Mandarich.
Appreciate you guys.
Thank you for coming on the show, my man. Appreciate you. Appreciate your lives. It's fun watching you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
So, Michigan State Spartans. I have to start there.
Well, listen, I got on your feed maybe 30 minutes ago just to check out some of your posts, and I went to some older posts, and then I saw one where you're sitting on your porch and you got a Michigan thing on it, and they must have just beat Ohio State or something because you're going Michigan, and I'm going, what have I gotten myself into here?
No, man, it's all fun. I am a Michigan Wolverine fan. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. It's great to beat Ohio State. It's great to beat little sister, brother, and the Michigan State Spartans. But I am so happy to have you on our show.
I appreciate
Tell
it.
us what it was like. It had to be big with you, even as a college person playing Michigan. What was your favorite, most memorable moment playing against the Michigan Wolverines?
Oh man, I mean there were several, but with Michigan, my favorite was when they played in East Lansing, and it was 87, the 87 season, the year we won the Big Ten. They had a quarterback. He was number 6. I forget his name, but he threw like 6 or 7 interceptions, and it's like, and it was, I mean, and I'm embarrassed to say it was still within like one score to win, right? After throwing 6 picks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that just goes to show you how, well Michigan is recruited and how well they play. The guy had a bad day. I mean, everybody has a bad day. One of our DBs had 4 interceptions that day. So, but that game was fun because I personally played extremely well that game. And I remember, when you see a Wolverine flying backwards in the air, I mean, that's a good feeling,
Yeah, not bad. All right, yeah.
So I got sticking with the NCAA stuff. Getting recruited. What was the process? Like, who all offered you? What was that process like?
So for me, it was probably slightly like there's a little nuance in mine that was different because my first 3 years of high school were in Canada where I grew up. My 4th year and final year of high school was at Kent Roosevelt High School in Kent, Ohio, because my brother was going to Kent State. He was a senior. And, my goal was to get a scholarship to a big time school. And then the next goal after that would be to take it to the next level and play in the NFL. So in Canada in 1980, early 80s, the U.S. colleges just weren't recruiting. And if they were, Division threes, and not that there's anything wrong with Division III, but I wanted to play big time college football. So I moved down to Ohio with my brother. Luckily, the high school team I played on had 5 5-star recruits for scholarships. So that gave me a ton of exposure because of them. And then, you keep your fingers crossed and you hope the scout says, well, who's that guy? Because we've never heard of him. And that's really more or less what happened. And that was Nick Saban's area, right? Ohio. So I got recruited. I took a visit to Kent State, which was right there, and they were Mid-American Conference. Took a visit to Michigan in Ann Arbor that, they had offered. Then my next visit was Michigan State. And then I had another visit scheduled the week after that for Maryland. But once I visited Michigan State, when I was leaving there, my choice was made. I knew that Michigan State was the right fit for me. So, Nick Nick recruited me. He came down to the school. He knew our head coach from Kent Roosevelt, John Nemec, who's I think he just retired like 7-8 years ago. Legendary high school football coach in Ohio. And John Nemec obviously put in some good words too for Nick to recruit me and stuff. But you still, look, you got to be able to play football. It doesn't matter how networked you are. If that's what they're looking for, you still got to be able to play. And so they offered me a full scholarship. And in that process, Nick had flown 3 times to Canada to visit with my parents in Southern Ontario.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And think about that, because I'm not a 5-star recruit. I'm not like this tier 1 recruit. I'm 1 year of American high school football coaching. But they said that they saw, a lot of raw talent, and I was fast. I've always been fast, because I think it's because I played a ton of soccer growing up. But that was pretty much, like, in a nutshell, that was the process. And it was, Michigan State was the best fit for multiple reasons. Most of their offensive line starters were juniors going into their senior year, and then there was a huge gap. So yeah, I might not play my first year there, I might get redshirted, which is what happened, but then I became a 4-year starter. So like, that was one of my decisions. The other decision was, if I want to play at the next level, here I got a guy, head coach George Perlis, who spent most of the 70s with the Pittsburgh Steelers on the defensive side of the ball, coaching the Steel Curtain. So he knows what it takes to get there, and he can basically tell me if I'm kidding myself, as years go on, or if I need to, pick up the game or watch more film or whatever the case may be. And then obviously Nick was a huge influence. Nick then was the same Nick that you see now, except there's obviously a lot more wisdom with him, and people know who he is. Back then, he was a defensive back coach, but his formula is the same. It is discipline. It is keeping things simple. It is fundamental. Just do your job, kind of thing. And boy, you better be accountable. And so that was another big factor why I went to Michigan State.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it's not just, oh my gosh, it's Michigan State. Because I have a feeling sometimes people pick the school that they want to play at because it's a big name school. So there's a process that goes through that, is what you're trying to say.
Yes. Yeah. Well, for me, there was, I think, look, if it was what you just said, excuse me, if it was, I just want to play at a big school, well, why the heck wouldn't I go to U of M? They're about as big as it gets, right, as far as a brand. And great doctor, great school for doctors, lawyers, engineers, right? Okay. So, look, I mess around in my TikTok lives all the time, because we get a bunch of Michigan fans come in, but they're great. They banter, they friendly banter, but no, nobody takes it to like a insulting level. If they do, they just get muted and delete or blocked. But it's like, I always say, look, we love Michigan fans. Just because we don't like the school doesn't mean we don't like Michigan fans, and we try to pray them to the green side. So, we get a bunch of no, in the chat when that happens. Right. But yeah, but even when I visited Michigan State in 2015, and I had been back even since then, but when I was talking to our equipment guy, who was the same equipment guy when I was there, his name was Bob Knickerbocker. He was showing me these chrome helmets that Michigan State had, and he said, we're going to use this for like one of the games this year. So this is 2015. And, Oregon wasn't in the Big Ten, but Oregon already had that. Every Saturday they were in a different uniform and everything and all this. And I said, Bob, why do people do this? And he said, it is the number one question that he gets asked by recruits coming in. How many different uniforms are we going to wear this year? How many different helmets? And that really surprised me, because that has nothing to do with what you're going to get your education in. Has nothing to do with, like, okay, my position, how many seniors are there? When does it look like I'm going to play? Are the 2 guys in front of me, is one of them an All-American and a sophomore? Like, because I'm probably not going to play that position then, or start at that position. all those things you would think are just common sense things that would cross your mind and you would ask yourself. But he's like, he even said it surprises him that literally the first question, how many different uniforms do we have this year?
Wow. Wow. That's
Yeah,
great.
Wow.
it's interesting.
Matt?
So what was, I like to ask these questions as well. We'll get back to this when we talk about your NFL experience. What was your favorite venue? Obviously, you played in the Rose Bowl. What was your favorite stadium to visit? Like, what was the one that, like, oh my God, this is the best place. Like, this is my favorite place to go ruin someone's day, or
Right.
maybe even at Michigan State Stadium.
Well, Michigan Stadium would be a great place to go ruin their day. That being said, the best place to play, hands down, the best place to play is Notre Dame. There is a mystique about that field, and if you play them at night, it's even like more special. And I can compare it to Lambeau. Lambeau is the same way. There's just something about that place that you can't help but feel it. And visiting teams talk about it too, right? Even Chicago talks about it, with that big rivalry. But Notre Dame is like the Lambeau of college football, in my opinion, from all the stadiums I played at. Now, there's obviously a ton of them I didn't play at, but Ohio State is very hostile, very loud, louder than Michigan, even though I don't think they hold as many people. And remember, when I played, they were still a horseshoe. They weren't closed in. Now I think they're closed in, right, to fit more
think
people.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
But surprisingly, Michigan is out of all the stadiums I played at in college, Michigan's like in the top 5 for loudness. You would automatically think that they're going to be the loudest because of all the people. But I think part of it is the design of the stadium. And I think just a lot of the sound goes up instead of towards us. Like Illinois would be loud. Iowa was loud, and they were only 55, 60,000 people, but they were on top of you.
Yeah. Awesome. So I got to ask you, you sent me a video, and I was rather impressed with the video. And so I want to hear from you. The name Bill Fralick.
Oh, yeah.
How does that name resonate with you? What's that mean to you?
I mean, he was like, and there were other guys, but he was like my main guy. And I only briefly talked to him once after we played Atlanta. But in college, he was like 4 years older than me. In college, like the way he played, and I was not like a Pitt fan, University of Pittsburgh fan or anything, but just the way he played, and he played with a chip on his shoulder. He played, he finished his blocks. He was very aggressive for an offensive lineman. And it was one of those things that's like, I want to be like that guy. Like I want to model my play like that guy. And always had just mad respect for him.
Okay. Matt?
So fast forward to the draft day, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I looked at your draft class because I had to go because I was 8 years old when you were drafted.
Right.
So I wanted to see what that was all about. In my opinion, you had the best draft class in the history of the NFL draft.
I think
and
so
you
too.
were number 2.
Right.
That to me, just talking to you, it just gives me goosebumps because you were chosen at number 2.
Right.
What was your draft day like?
So 2 weeks before draft day, Dallas personnel call my agent, and they say, we're going to take Troy number 1. They obviously didn't make it public to the media because I think they would make the start of the draft a little bit anticlimactic, right?
Yeah.
So, but they said and the reason we're telling you this because we've already made up our mind, and like we're negotiating with him right now so we can get him in ASAP. But the public didn't know that. So then we told Green Bay that, And Green Bay said, okay. And then I think they may have talked to Dallas and said to confirm it. And I think once Dallas confirmed with Green Bay non-publicly that Dallas was going to take Troy, Green Bay told me and my agent that they're going to draft me. So, and, you know, we didn't obviously talk about it publicly, but we said, okay. So then Green Bay wanted me to fly to Green Bay for draft day, to be at Lambeau for draft day. And one of the really cool things that I got to, like, I was allowed to do when I got to Lambeau, I mean, it was cool. We're in like whatever they call like the war room, the draft room or whatever. You know, you meet a bunch of people and stuff like this, coaches and board of director people and the head coach. And then they say, okay, we're going to be on the clock here in about 2 minutes to draft. And you get, I think then you used to get 15 minutes to draft the first rounder. So they handed me the phone and they said, okay, we're going to call the floor of the draft right now. And, you know, you have each representative for each team is sitting at like a little foldable table. And this is the guy you're going to talk to. And you just tell him, and this was the funny part, right? Just tell him, say, hey, look, it's Tony Mandarich calling. Please draft me. Right. So it was like one of those things that are like once in a lifetime things that, you know, I could never like have that opportunity again to do something like that. And I thought it was really cool. I thought it was very creative, and I felt very honored to be able to do that. I mean, to this day, I mean, I giggle about it because I'm like, that was so cool, you know. But yeah, so then the rest of that day was, you know, we just talked. I mean, it was all like your basic information talk. I mean, they weren't going to give me any playbook or anything, obviously, until I was signed. And at that time, I was living in California. I only lived in California for a 9-month stretch. And I think it was that, like, I met my brother in Green Bay because I wanted him there for that. And then I think we may have spent the night, and then the next morning we flew back to California. So that was, you know, more or less my draft day.
Cool.
So on that draft day and all these people, you know, kids that are getting drafted, for you, what was more important for Tony Mandarich? Mentorship, humility, support, or is it just something else on that day, or even in your rookie season?
So what was more important for me at that time?
Yes.
Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, I'm sure it had something to do with me, right? Because I wanted to be the center of attention. I was so full of pride to a point where it was detrimental to myself. So it wasn't I mean, I was grateful that I got drafted that high. I will say it didn't feel like I thought it would feel, you know, and the question I would ask myself is, well, how did you think it was going to feel? And I can't even answer that question. All I know is it didn't feel like I thought it was going to feel. It was almost like a letdown. And it had nothing to do, even though in the papers I talked smack about Green Bay, it really had nothing to do with that town that I was let down. I was just like, is this it? Like, I was like, this is like the whole thing I've been working for to get here and be drafted. And obviously there's a lot ahead of me, but at that point, I felt like, I mean, I was let down. And again, I could have been in New York or Los Angeles or anywhere. I think I would have had the same feeling.
Okay. Matt?
So, were there, going against sticking with the draft, was there any teams before Green Bay said, "Hey, we're going to take you"? Were there any teams on the list and the top 10 that you're like, I don't want to end up there?
Well, besides Green Bay.
Well, I don't blame you, man. I mean, you know.
You know, and looking back, like, you know, now looking back, and obviously hindsight's perfect. What a great market to be in Green Bay with all the tradition and Lambeau Field and all this stuff. And I was kind of like a spoiled brat, being like, yeah, I don't want to play there, you know. And it's like, but you know, I guess it was necessary for me to go through those shortcomings and those downfalls and the failures there to get to this point today to kind of be like, have a whole different perspective. The only other, and going back to the pride thing, this will be an example of it. Kansas City was picking fourth. Obviously, they took Derek Thomas. When they were taking me out to dinner, this is probably a month before the draft in East Lansing, they took me out to dinner after my workout and all that. Marty Schottenheimer is sitting there, and then the GM, I can't, is it something Patterson? I can't remember who the GM was then, but they were asking me questions about steroids. They were like, we got to ask you because we're going to invest a lot of money, and we got to ask you if you took, are you taking steroids? And I said, no. I said, no, I've never tested positive for steroids, which is a different answer than the question they asked, right? And they said, well, we think you're taking steroids. And I said, well, then why are you asking the question? If you know, then why are you asking me the question, right? And they're like, well, we just want you to, just tell us if you are. And this is where the pride came out. And I was like, you guys don't need to worry about me. You guys have the fourth pick. I'll be long gone before the fourth pick. And, like that is such an arrogant attitude, and it's so smug and really has, no place in the game or in life for that matter. But, they were like, whatever. I'm sure a year later they were very happy that they didn't take me. And they took Derek Thomas. But yeah, that was like, that's one of those stories you remember where you're like, man, yeah, that could have been done differently.
So I worked with a guy named Johnny Bayless. He was NFL. I think he was with the New York Giants at the time that he was working with me. Anyways, he talks about all this extra stress and all the extra stuff that the NFL, he would say, feeds you guys to make you stronger, blah, 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 blah. In what ways do you think the NFL culture in the late 80s and 90s fed into those unhealthy habits that you were talking about that the Kansas City Chiefs asked you about?
Well, like I can tell you, I mean, I shouldn't say only. I took steroids in college. I never took any in the pros. There are people that think I did, right? Like fans or say people in journalism. And I'm like, I don't get it. You're telling me I'm a failure in Green Bay, how I'm playing, but you're telling me, and I'm a failure because I'm not on steroids anymore, but you're saying I'm still taking steroids. So it was kind of like an oxymoron thing. And from my firsthand experience, I was never offered anything that was like performance enhancing, like from the Green Bay Packers or Indianapolis Colts. I mean, in Indianapolis, we took creatine. Now I don't know. Nowadays, creatine might be on the ban list. I don't know. They just banned ammonia capsules, which I'm like, are you guys kidding me? Like, I don't know what's happening with the NFL.
Well, you can't hit the quarterback, so I mean.
Well, yeah, I mean, you breathe on Mahomes and you get a 15-yarder.
Yeah,
and but there was, the only thing that I would say would be somewhat, I wouldn't even say it was controversial because I don't think they knew, but there was a anti-inflammatory injection that we would get. You didn't have to take it, but if you wanted to play, you probably should. It was called Toradol. And in the last 30 years, there's been a lot of studies on Toradol causing a lot of problems, health problems. So, I was never forced to take it.
Okay.
Although I took it because it actually made your body less sore from all the injuries.
Got it. Matt?
Real quick, just because you had me thinking, I Googled creatine is not currently on the banned substance list.
That's good because creatine, the benefits of creatine, way back in the day when I used to take it, because I take it every day now, the benefits of creatine and all the tens of thousands of case studies that have been done about creatine and how it's been refined better and better over the decades, it has a better result for cognitive function in anybody's brain, male or female, than it does for muscle gain and muscle recovery. And I can tell you, for muscle gain and muscle recovery, it's pretty darn good. So, that's why I take it every day. Otherwise, I used to take it only on days I used to work out, but now I take it every day because I can tell there's more clarity in my head. And the cognitive function is just that I could just notice that you're just slightly a little bit sharper, and it's so inexpensive, and it's over the counter, it's inexpensive, and very safe. Very, very few side effects. Like, one of the worst side effects is someone who has a upset stomach, might be more susceptible to an upset stomach. So like a gastrointestinal thing. But if you don't have that kind of a problem, there's almost no side effects for creatine.
Okay, my question for you is, out of all the years you playing, who was it? I mean, in college and in the pros, who were the guys? Like, who was the guy that you're like, shit? I have to block that. I have to maintain this guy. I have to make sure he's not touching my quarterback.
Right. There wasn't one in college. There were tough players to play against, but there wasn't one where I was like, oh man, this is going to be a long day. I mean, I can say when we played Ohio State, Chris Spielman, I would have a little bit of that feeling, not because he was going to run me over, but because he was such a student of the game, which was such an advantage. And he was unbelievable Detroit Lion, and what he's doing now in the front office is just I have so much respect for that. And I remember watching him play in Ohio. I think he played for the Massillon Tigers, and I mean, that guy's life is all like a unbelievable football story. He would be one of those guys where I'd be like, okay, we really got to watch this guy, because again, he's not going to run me over because I was so big and strong, although he was strong and just a great nose for the football from film study. But you just kind of had to keep an eye on him, because he'll make a tackle for a loss if you just glance away, and so he was dangerous that way. In the NFL, it was easy. I mean, when I say it's easy to pick who it was, Reggie White, right? I mean, I always describe to people, because people will say, well, what made him so great? One of the things besides playing with great leverage and he played with great leverage, but he also got you off balance, right? As soon as your momentum started one way, then he would either club you and take you that way, which is easier for him, or if he saw you really protecting your inside, he'd run around you. And then if he didn't like either of those, he'd just run over you, right? So he was that kind of player. And I describe to people, and this is the best analogy I can give, is if you go into a industrial parking garage, and everything's concrete, right? Everything's concrete. The pillars and the big round concrete beams that are supporting. If you go up there and if you just you don't have to punch it hard, just punch that concrete a few times with your fist, not to hurt yourself, but just punch it. And then if you grab a piece of sheetrock that goes on the walls of your house or your apartment, I said, people can kind of half punch that and put a hole in the wall. I said, Reggie and Lawrence Taylor are concrete, and the rest of the NFL is drywall. Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's like the best analogy I can give you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good. Wow. So, you left Green Bay, you took a little bit of a break or whatever happened in your life. And then you came back to one of my favorite football teams, Indianapolis Colts.
Yep.
Was that a humble experience for you? Was that a good way to end your career?
It was, I felt lucky. I felt lucky that anybody even gave me an opportunity, because when I always say, I got the boot out of Green Bay. Did I literally officially get the boot from the NFL? No, I didn't break any of the rules, right? But when my contract was up after that fourth year, Green Bay had told me, we're not going to look to re-sign you. So feel free to go work out for anybody that you want. We're not going to start negotiating with you or nothing. So I said, okay. And so I spent 3 more years. I spent 3 years after that in Traverse City, and just drinking and drugging myself to death with pharmaceuticals. And then I got sober in Brighton, Michigan, March 23rd of 95, and still had no intention of playing football. And about 6 months being sober, I started working out again, like during those 6 months. So when I got sober, the day I left the treatment center, I was like 255. And in 6 months, I was 295. And I was probably 80% as strong as I ever was. And that's like with no chemicals in me. And I was like, wow, like this is after 6 months, of just training hard and not taking any steroids, not taking any painkillers, not drinking, just living good, clean life. And so then I called my agent and I said, I'd like to come back and play. But he didn't buy it. Like he was like, I have to see, he was in Cleveland and he's like, I need to see you with my eyes before I call any NFL teams, because he didn't even believe in me. So I drove down to Cleveland and saw him, and he was like, this is the guy I remember in college. You look like you were in college, right? So Philadelphia, and this is kind of an interesting story here. Philadelphia said that they wanted to, he put the word out. Philadelphia said, we have a scout flying from LA to Philly, but he's got a 6-hour layover in Cleveland. So he will take Tony through a workout, which should take no more than 2 hours, at a local community college outside of Cleveland in a basketball gymnasium. And I'm in Traverse City, right? Like, so it's an 8-hour drive to Cleveland. So my agent calls me, tells me this, and he's like, I think we should do it. I said, absolutely. I said, when is it? And he was like in 3 days. So I drove down 8 hours, had a great workout. And this scout was like, where have you been? Like, what's going on? He's like, you look like you're in great shape. You look, and I didn't want to tell him everything because he was, I didn't know the guy and stuff. So he calls up Ray Rhodes, who's the head coach of Philly, who was one of my coaches in Green Bay. And he tells Ray Rhodes how the workout went. And they call me the next day and they say, look, next week we want to fly you to Philly. And in the meantime, word kind of got out that I had a good workout. So Indianapolis invited me to work out. And I said, okay, when do you want me to come down? And they said tomorrow morning, but they were going to fly me down. So I said, okay, I'll be there. And then long story short, I went down there, had a great workout, and they offered me a contract right then and there. And I just told them I just needed 24 hours to run it by my wife at the time and get back to them. And obviously I did. And then I said, yes. Here's the ironic part of the story. So that was the workout was in January of 96. Okay. In February of 89, I had my own pro day at Michigan State. I had like owners, scouts, GMs, head coaches, all flying to East Lansing to work me out. And then 7 years later, I'm driving 8 hours one way on my own dime just to work out in a basketball gymnasium. And so, yeah, it was humbling. And I mean, I never felt like I never complained about any of it. I was like, I am just grateful that somebody's even going to work me out.
Well, congratulations on your sobriety. I'm proud of you for that. That's awesome.
Thank you.
I have a son that I think is 6-7 months.
That's
sober.
awesome. That's awesome.
When I hear stories like that, that makes me feel really good. So thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
We only got like 10 minutes, so.
So my son, he, like I said, in the pre-show, he loves football. He he wants to play at least in the collegiate level, D1. If you were to sit down with a kid that's 12, 13 years old, what would you tell them as far as like what you would do to achieve that goal?
Well, I mean, I'm going to tell you what I did. And that was play as many sports as you can. So if you're in high school, make sure you wrestle, obviously make sure you play football, make sure you wrestle because it's a different season. Then in the spring, make sure that you're part of track and field. If you don't wrestle and you want to play basketball, that's fine. Play for the high school basketball team. Just make sure that football is not the only thing you're concentrating on, because doing all those things helps with athleticism and helps build athletic ability. I played soccer for 8 years, from second grade all the way till high school. And I know that helped my speed, and you're constantly moving forward, backward, sideways, running full speed. I know that developed a lot of things for me. I wouldn't, at 12 or 13, I wouldn't start weightlifting yet. Knock yourself out with as many plyometrics and push-ups and chin-ups and, bear crawls and all these things, but work on becoming a better athlete, because you can always put strength and size on later. Rarely will a freshman come into a big-time school and not have to put a lot of strength and size on. So that can get developed easy. It's hard to get really great athletic feet that can move, for an offensive lineman or really for any position. That's why I always say basketball is so important, because if you watch a basketball player's feet, I mean, they're in different directions, constantly pointing different ways, pushing off different ways. All that stuff helps you become a better athlete. And then the wrestling, with leverage, and it gets you stronger and teaches you discipline, helps you get through hard times, because wrestling's hard and you sweat a lot and you get fatigued, but pushing through that fatigue, I think, helps you become a better athlete. So it would be more along those lines. The one thing I didn't do, just because I didn't know, was if somebody would have said to me, start studying film of great players that are at your position, and they could be in the college they want to go to, or they could just be a great player from any team. They could even be pros, right? So it's just watch their feet, watch those fundamentals, see why they do what they do, what makes them great. Because those core things are pretty much the same from high school to college to pro.
Okay.
Awesome, good advice. So 3 real quick questions.
Yes, sir.
Toughest split, most underrated teammate.
Well, I used to say Sterling Sharp, but I won't say that anymore because he's now in the Hall of Fame. Most underrated. I mean, I thought he should have been in the Hall of Fame 10 years ago. Most underrated teammate. Gosh, I don't know. Like, that's a tough question to.
Okay. Best trash talker.
A guy from Indianapolis. When I played in Indianapolis, you guys probably know his name, Tony Siragusa.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
goose.
he was a jokester / trash talker. But he was on my team, so that was good.
And my last question for you, I don't know, Matt can finish up the show, but my last question for you, Tony, is what if moment of your career? What is the what if moment of your career?
Give me an example of what you mean.
Like, if I would have done this, I would have been here longer. Or, if I would have made this decision, I would have been.
Look, I just wanted to make sure it was. It's the way I understand it is what you explained. So there isn't one. There really isn't one. I made a lot of wrong decisions, but when I made a decision, and I went forward with it. I would think it through and then go forward with it. And today, like, I look back and like, I don't have any regrets. There were a lot of mistakes made, and I looked at them, I acknowledged them, and I corrected them. And who I am today, I'm comfortable with. So it took all the nonsense that I did to get to where I'm at now. And by no means am I perfect. I'm far from perfect, but I'm pretty comfortable with who I am.
Good. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Matt. You have any other last questions?
No, I just want to take this couple seconds to say thank you for coming on. And we touched on this before we came on air. Thank you for being for me, being part of my childhood, because I did remember watching you.
Awesome.
And just, I was an offensive lineman,
Yeah.
and I was like, this guy's just an animal.
Right.
You know, I've done camps with Lomas Brown. I've been around him, Scott Conover. They come here, and I've just talked. And I mentioned I got the phone call from Scott about you coming on the show while I was at that camp, and I had mentioned something to Scott Conover. He goes, "I remember him. I played defense at Purdue, and oh my God, he was an animal." I'm like. So, you know,
you were an animal. I mean, check this out, dude.
The incredible bulk,
right?
You were huge in it. So, what was it? What was it like playing against Barry Sanders?
Like as the Green Bay Packer?
Yeah.
I tell you, you know, as an offensive line, obviously Barry and I are not on the field at the same time because we're both on offense. So when the other offense, meaning say Detroit's in this case, is on the field, we're drinking water, we're hydrating, we're going over like what defenses are being shown to us that we need to adjust for. And then it's like, and then there comes a point where it's like there's no more to talk about. Like, so just chill, get off your feet, stay out, like sitting on the bench and get ready for the next drive. Barry was so good that we would all stand up and stand on the sideline just to watch him run. Because you never knew, it could be first down, it could be third down. You just never knew when he would do one of those highlight reel things. And he was so awesome to watch that, I mean, yeah, we'd be on our feet as opposing offensive linemen just to watch him. I mean, the guy's just, to me, he's the GOAT. To me, he is the best running back that ever was in the league. Now that's not disrespect to Walter Payton, and it's definitely not disrespect to Jim Brown, because I only saw highlights of Jim Brown. Everybody I've talked to that did watch Jim Brown still say he was the best. But I didn't watch him. That wasn't my experience. My experience was this guy, number 20, Barry Sanders. And to me, he's the GOAT. And, you know, and I feel also lucky that in our draft, Deion Sanders, I think he's the best corner that's ever played the game. Like the guy like glided on the field. And so it's like, okay, well, you were surrounded by 4 Hall of Famers. 2 of them go down as GOATs of those 4 Hall of Famers. You know, Troy didn't do too bad, 3 Super Bowl rings, I think. And now he's like, his whole career with everything he's done. And even today with announcing, I mean, the guy's, he's a great announcer. I mean, just because I'm not a fan of his, he's a great announcer. Right. And then, and then unfortunately that whole tragedy with Derek Thomas, you know, with the car accident, but Derek Thomas, I think still holds the record for the most sacks in one game, you know, and like to think about being surrounded by those guys in that draft, to me, is like, I feel honored. I mean, there's people that take the other twist on it and they say, well, you know, now you're even a bigger bust. And I'm like, look, I don't know. If you're a bust, you're a bust. I mean, I don't know how you can be a bigger bust than a smaller bust, but the Green Bay years were a bust. I don't think those guys enhanced my bust anymore in Green Bay. Like it was an epic fail. But then that's where a lot of people stop. They do a hard stop there. They don't talk about, many of them don't talk about the comeback after almost being out 4 years, coming back to the league, making it, and playing for 3 years for Indianapolis.
I was very impressed with that. So.
You know, and it's I don't feel obligated that I have to tell people that, but it's like, if you're going to tell the story, tell the whole story, you know, because a lot of fans and a lot of critics will stop at the Green Bay years and they'll be like, bust, that's it, it's over, you know. So
well, man, I thank you for your time. I know you got a live to get to.
Yes,
My
sir.
question, I guess one last question. Would you ever revisit coming back on in like say 5-6 months to talk about the Lions winning the Super Bowl?
Yes, I would for sure.
Awesome, man. We'll have
For
to
sure.
get, because there's a, I mean, I have a, dude, I have a book. I did some research. I have so many questions. Like, what was it like to do the Lambeau leap? Yeah, there's just these
Oh no,
questions.
that was after. That wasn't created when I was there. That was a couple years after.
See, there's all these questions I would want to ask, but
Yeah.
I'll keep in touch with you, man.
Sounds
I
good.
appreciate your time. I appreciate you, Matt. Thank you for coming on the show.
And if anybody listening wants to follow, just follow me on TikTok is the best place. And I do a TikTok live for 2 hours every night from 6 to 8 p.m. Pacific time.
And that you sent me the link. I'm going to post it out when I post the video.
Okay.
You can send. This is pretty cool. I thought this was amazing. You can send helmets, pictures, cards, footballs, probably baseballs, Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated covers. Yep, jerseys, all that.
And you can send it to this. You go on the link. I haven't done it yet. I'm going to be doing it. You go on this link. You fill out this form, and we send it right to you. Correct.
Correct.
And he signs it. I've seen him. I've seen Mr. Mandarich sign it on video.
Yeah, we call it signature sessions.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Check this guy out on TikTok. He's live every night for 2 hours. If you're a Green Bay Packer fan, Michigan State fan, Indianapolis Colts, or just a regular, or just a football fan, check him out. And as always, we always say at Huge Pop Wrestling, we're for life.